Guys, Mike coming at you here from the parking lot of the grocery store. Strange, right? My wife's not feeling well today, so I decided that I needed to go and do the grocery shopping for her. Eliminate one thing off her task list. I needed to make a video for today, so the topic I want to talk about is something I mentioned in my previous video from Friday, which is the whole idea that, you know, we who want more liberty in this country cannot have liberty unless more and more people start taking personal responsibility for themselves and their families. Now, that particular quote hit me pretty hard because, like I said then, that is an area I have failed at. I think that we as a culture are failing there as well, especially men, and there's a wide array of reasons why we failed there, but I want to focus on talking about a few things. The first thing I would talk about is taking stock of your responsibilities. I don't think a lot of us, and myself was included in this, really understands what our responsibilities entail. What is it exactly that we are responsible for? Well, I took some time to think about this, and basically I'm responsible for making sure that my kids have food to eat, making sure they have clothing to wear, making sure that they get the education that they need to make it in this world, and that's just a few of the things that I'm responsible for. And I never really took stock of that wow, I have a lot of huge responsibilities. And I've never thought about what would happen if I neglect those responsibilities. Now, I have suffered due to the neglect of some of those responsibilities, including basically living in poverty. Now, this living in poverty was my fault because I neglected my responsibilities. I was not willing to do what responsible people do, and in light of that, and in light of laziness, no excuse for it, I put my family through a very rough time. And we're just now at a point where I've realized the mistakes and just bad things that I've done so that we can begin to fix them, you know? So, you know, taking stock of responsibility is important. We have to know what exactly is our responsibilities. What are we in charge of? What is it that we need to do every day? The second thing I want to talk about here in regards to this quote that you know, really moved me was thinking about viewing responsibility as a good thing. Now, this is what has landed me in trouble. I have always viewed responsibility as a drag. Like, oh, this is my responsibility, as something that's a weight that's keeping me from experiencing joy and happiness. You know, why do I want to work for? Working is dumb, it's boring. You know, the only thing I get out of it is a paycheck, and even that, it's barely enough to live on, so why bother? Working is stupid. I'd rather have fun. You know, that kind of mentality. We look at responsibility of family. Many men today don't want to get married and have children because they don't want the responsibility to tie them down. We used to, back in the day, and back when this country was founded, men particularly had a sense of responsibility, and that sense of responsibility was something that was good, something that was valued and treasured, and I think it should still be that way today. So I think a lot of that has to do with our cultural perception of responsibility, and I think we need a drastic change in that. I mean, if you look at the kind of comedies in television and movies that are popular today, most of it's about some slacker who lives in his mom's basement and plays video games all day, who doesn't have a job, who's kind of just the lovable loaf. And, you know, because of that, culture thinks that's acceptable and that that's good and something to be applauded. Now, that's not all of culture, but, you know, Hollywood culture and you know, a lot of young men who are impressionable, you know, they see that and think it's cool. We need to change that. It absolutely needs to change, and that's a cultural thing. It starts with education. It starts with people showing, you know, especially young men, but even young women, that there are so many negative consequences for not fulfilling your obligations and your responsibilities, and that it leads to destruction and ill health and worry and all kinds of problems. Number 3 that I wanted to talk about here real quick with you, looking at my list, is allowing responsibility to place pressure on your shoulders. Now, I'm not talking about an exercise move here. I'm literally talking about, you know, really letting the weight of your responsibilities fall on your shoulders. Really thinking through, like for me, the fact that I have to take care of a wife and 2 kids. They depend on me every day to provide what they need for survival, for life. It's not the government's job to do that. That responsibility, morally, religiously, just all the way around, falls on me. And if I fail, they don't eat. That's the way, the responsibility, the weight of the responsibility that I need to allow on my shoulders. I need to sit and think that if I do not intervene, if I do not fulfill my responsibilities and my obligations, then my family will not have food to eat. They will not have a place to live. It's that serious. And that pressure, the more you allow the pressure of those responsibilities to kind of hit you, the better off you'll be. The more inclined you'll be to do the right moral thing. And that is something that I've tried to avoid at all costs, is letting those things sink deeply into my heart, because then I know it's going to drive me to make sacrifices. Which, that's the very next thing I want to talk about. Taking responsibility for your actions means sacrifice. For me, what this means personally is that I'm someone who's self-employed and I'm launching a business, as well. So right now my self-employment is freelancing. What that means for me is, since we are not doing well financially, I need to sacrifice my time to working more hours, working harder, even working some Saturdays to try to make up ground financially to support us, to make sure that there's food on the table and to make sure that there's a place to live and all those other good things that I need to provide for my family. That's what it means for me to make a sacrifice, is time. I need to work harder, longer hours. It sucks, but this is just the nature of the beast. And if I want to be able to work full-time and launch this business on the side, to better my family, then this is what I need to do. It's going to require a lot of time. So I'm going to have to cut out some things that I enjoy doing. I'm going to have to reduce the amount of time I spend on hobbies and other things that don't put food on the table. For me, another thing that included was podcasting. Now, I'm not stopping podcasting, but I'm dropping down to 2 times a week, and I'm moving from the topic of entertainment and culture to politics and to this whole deal here, because this is something I'm much more knowledgeable about and something that I'm much more passionate about, really, because this is much more important. I have to now budget my time. I have to make sure that I stick to a schedule, and I have to lessen my own freedom. I have to personally decide to lay aside some of my freedom and liberty to make sure that I get these things done. I don't need the government to take away my liberty. I can lay some of this aside to support my family, and in doing so, I will be more free than if I didn't. Hope that made sense. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm just rambling on here, but this is something I deem to be important, so, whatever. The 5th thing that I want to talk about, and the final thing, is working hard. I'm going to have to work harder than I ever have in my life. I'm going to need to focus, to complete tasks on time, to really put a lot of effort into accomplishing my goals in my freelancing work and in building this business. I eventually want this business to take over, and so I can stop freelancing altogether. I'll just have to see how that goes, and it's going to take time. But more than anything, it takes so much hard work. There's a lot of time that I have to devote to promoting my business, promoting myself in the freelance world, promoting my videos on YouTube, promoting my podcasts, because all these things will eventually tie in together. So, it's a lot of work. But if I want to be a good provider for my family, it's what has to be done. I have to be willing to sacrifice and work harder than I've ever worked in my whole life. I may have to give up some weekend time. I may have to give up some leisure time, because I can't sacrifice my responsibilities to spend time with my children and my wife. So that means I got to sacrifice a lot of me time. But it's all a matter of what is it that I want to accomplish with my life? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? How can I be a proponent for limited, extremely limited government according to the Constitution and maximum personal freedom if I'm not willing to take responsibility for myself to ensure that my family is being, provided for by me and nobody else? And how can I help others like me get back up on their feet so that they don't have to rely on the government if I'm poor? Well, that's all I had for today, guys. I know this is a long video, and there was a lot to it, and I hope you find some of that, beneficial. That was just something that I just felt like I needed to talk about and get it off my chest and let you know where I'm at. And be real with you. I want to demonstrate for you people that applying libertarian, conservative, free market principles to your life in a practical way, both personally and professionally, can lead to success and can even lead to wealth if you continue to work hard. And I want to show that journey, from being where I'm at to where I want to be, because I believe I will be successful. All right, guys, that's all I got. Peace.